So I have a few questions.
Oh no.
Perfect. All right, cool. Hopefully.
Great.
Hell yeah. Okay, so all right. So welcome back to Bummin Out with James. I have today Conor Hennessy, who is among other things. I mean, there's a few ways I could cut this, but one of my favorite songwriters, one of my favorite artists of all time, erstwhile tour partner. And I was just thinking about this earlier today. Probably, and I don't know if this is true for you, probably the person I've played the most shows with out of anyone else, just by virtue of tour.
Yeah, I think that might be the case with me for sure.
I don't think
it happened so. It seems like it happened so accidentally, you know. It's not like we planned that or anything.
No, and I
guess we say when we plan dates.
When we went on tour and we drove around and asked to stay in people's houses. But I'm excited to have you on because so again, I was thinking about all this over the last few days. By virtue of the fact that we've played so much together, and by virtue of the fact that we've like spent so much time, just the two of us in the car, like, and talked a lot about art, I feel like over the years you've been kind of, you know, whenever I write anything or do anything artistic, and this is, I think, also true of teaching, there's always kind of like an imagined audience that you have. Like when I'm planning a lesson or whatever, I'm imagining how students are going to deal with it. But by virtue of having done the job for a long time, I automatically envision a particular kind of audience, and it happens to be like students I've had before. And similarly, when I write, I think about that. Whenever I'm writing, you're definitely one of the like people that I'm like, what's Conor going to make of this? And then I use that.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Just by virtue of having done this a lot. So I'm excited to get a chance to talk with you about songwriting. And I guess there's so many. Just to begin with, I want to throw something out there. Whenever I talk about your music to the people, I always say Conor Hennessy is one of my favorite political writers that I know and that I've ever heard. And this is a thing we've talked about before. Like, I don't know, what do you do with that? Do you that's never, it's never seemed like a label you've embraced so much, but I don't know what you think about that.
No, I just I don't know. It's probably going to be sort of a letdown of an answer, but I don't plan these things, you know. Like I just write about things that wherever I can find like an irony that I think is like funny. Like the obvious one would be like the wealthy liberal that's vouching for working class people, and like you don't know any working class people. Like all of the things you're saying, they don't care about. It's not. I mean, that's, you know, being general with it, but I don't know. Like you're very good at planning something and explaining it perfectly. I think a downside to how I do it is I don't really explain anything. I just throw all these sort of one-liners about stuff, and you either get it or you don't. And so there's a lot of confused faces. A lot of people are like, "That was amazing."
Everyone talking in that weird voice that the audience talks in.
Yeah, all three of my fans talking in that voice. Yeah.
Like clown people.
Right.
I mean, that it's interesting because I do know. I mean, this is something that Darren Bradbury always talks about. Like he kind of frames his songwriting as like everything is just like there's like a joke he's trying to deliver. Like there's a thing he thinks is funny and he like works it into a song.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot, like definitely I see that irony is a like part of the lifeblood of what you do. But the thing is also, I mean, like just by taking the example you gave, there's a politics to it, right? And I mean, there's a consistency too. I mean, this is one of the things that, like, the reason why I've always looked to your songwriting for guidance is because I think
that's crazy.
It's true. I think at a time when I was leaning hardest into a kind of actually, I don't want to implicate myself. So just yet in this. Okay, I'll say this: your writing has always had a class politics that I think is like is something which the point of your music is that it's absent in places where like super duper shouldn't be absent, and it's like, I guess one thing I'm interested in is what do you? It's always been my perception that your audience or your perception of audience is sort of mixed in with your perception of target. Like part of the joke is that you're saying the thing to the people who the thing is. Is that true, or is like tell me about that dynamic for you?
Yeah, I guess that is true. Although I've never really thought about that. But you're right. I mean, a lot of the things. You know what the best venue for me was to play
What?
when you could play outside? Remember that? Was Club Passim, right? Because
Sure.
you have all the. By the way, I'm not complaining about Club Passim, but their clientele is sort of like these well-educated folkies that like were around in the scene in the 60s, 70s, and then became successful in whatever business venture they found themselves in, and then they came back to re-experience that. And I'm trying to think. I haven't even sung any of my songs, and so I can't remember the lines. But there are a lot of lines in that you're right. Sort of the joke is the person is there and sitting in it, and I'm up there, singing my song and kind of making fun of them to a melody. The great thing about Club Passim though is everyone always laughed. It's not like I'm like a shitty Don Rickles or something. I don't know, like.
Is it better if they laugh? I mean, I guess like if
it's way better if they laugh.
Okay.
Silence.
Well, hold on. Is it better if they Is it better if they laugh knowingly or like? I guess like the way I think about this, just because how it contrasts with how I write, is for me if I was trying to like I'm always trying to make a point about something, which is its own weakness. But if I'm trying to make a point about something and somebody reacts to it in the way that I'm hoping they would react, but it doesn't seem to be coming from a place of clarity, it's like they're like, oh yeah, those people. But like that to me is like considerably worse. But does that factor in at all? Like you've always seemed much less like hung up about that kind of thing. So I don't know.
No, I mean I clearly don't think about these things that much because I'm giving you these horrible answers. But yeah, it always confuses me though when people come up to me and say, because you had to like it to come up to me and say you liked it, but clearly didn't get what the song was about. You know what I mean?
Does that bother you?
You have to have experienced that with what you do. I mean, because your songs are so dense and about all these amazing, intricate things.
But you know what the thing is that I've had people come up to me and say, like, I really loved this song about whatever, and it's just like, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that is not at all. And I mean, I remember having this experience a while ago. Like, I had a person. This one memory sticks out. I had a show in St. Louis, and someone came up to me afterwards, and it was this white woman, and she was like, I had played the Asian Friend song, and she was like, "Are you saying that?" It was something. I don't think this is an exaggeration. I think what she said was, "Are you saying that because I take Chinese food recommendations for my Chinese friend that I'm racist?" And I was like, I cannot have this conversation with you right now. Like, this is not happening. And I ended up having to have like an extremely patient conversation with this person. And eventually she was like, it seemed okay. But I mean, stuff like that happened more often than you'd think.
You know what? I don't know. I mean, not that I have any songs that are anything like my Asian Friend. But when someone comes to me and says something about the song, and you're like, "Oh, you didn't get this at all," I'll go, that's great. Have a good day. I'll see you later, huh? Like, I don't get into it at all. I'm like, yeah, you didn't get it. That's fine.
So it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't really bother you then. You're pretty much, is it just like primarily funny, or that's it?
It's more funny to me. I'm like, wow, you got that out of that. That's crazy. That's And what am I going to do? Change this person's mind on the spot? I don't know.
Dude, that's the thing. That's the kind of groundedness that I feel like I need a lot more, because I get so hung up. I mean, this is the kind of shit I'll lose sleep over, Connor. I'll lay in bed and be like, oh, they didn't get the song. You
know what's funny though is you might be the one person with a specific skill set that you actually could sway someone's mind in that small amount of time. I mean, you're teaching, and you're incredibly grounded in being patient with people that are ignorant about subjects you love.
I mean,
remember we were in like your car shit the bed in Pittsburgh or something, and we were in the backseat of a tow truck driver, and he was like, "Yeah, but don't all lives matter?" And I was like, "Oh, good Lord, this is gonna be." And then you just like had the most pleasant conversation with him. He completely came around, and he's like, "You guys have a good day." It was great.
I remember that was like 30 minutes into a like 2-hour drive or something.
Oh, I know.
It was like a long trip.
Yeah, we had a lot left.
Yeah, I remember
Survival
that.
was probably part of it, but I mean, it wasn't. My point is, it's not this horror story you hear over and over again on Facebook and Twitter about just blind ignorance and someone saying something hatred. They're almost always confused, it seems.
Right.
And I'm not equipped to teach them, but you are.
I appreciate you thinking so. I mean, I do think that was an interesting example of like there was no reason to believe that was going to be a worthwhile conversation.
Yeah.
But I mean, although it's interesting because that's also, I think we've all always shared that feeling that like it is actually something which is possible. Like these are, it's not about someone being like, fallen or whatever. Like, I mean, also just recognizing the deep arrogance of thinking something like that is there's humor there. But I am finding myself, I don't know. There are times when there's a level of despair I can fall into when thinking about the question of like, not necessarily is it possible, is there any circumstance under which I can be of any use to like bringing certain people to the table about certain conversations, and like that can be a really like, thinking about that sometimes can be pretty dark moments. But again,
I don't mean to take away from people stuck in ideology. It's not horrible that can be, but
I mean, I guess this is why I've always this is one of the things that I think is a really a real strength of your art, because you aren't like that's the sort of thing that will, in a sense, prevent me from writing for a period of time. Like I almost need to feel a sense before I'm writing that there's some efficacious that there's some purpose to my doing it and there's some use to it. But one of the things I've noticed of late is you are nonstop. I mean, it is crazy. You're so
funny. I feel like I've been a sluggard. Is that even a word?
I feel like
sounds like it could have been.
I'm gonna start saying it now.
Yeah, right. Because I haven't released any folk stuff in, it's got to be almost 2 years now. I've got a bunch of stuff I'm gonna record soon, but
yeah, but that's the thing. I mean, you're writing and you're always posting it, and also it's not just. So I should have mentioned in the beginning. So you've got like your the stuff you do on your own name, Conor Hennessy, like the folk stuff, and you also have obviously like Bill Grease and Dunes, and I mean, and in that front, you've been like really churning out material like at a kind of incredible pace.
I almost need someone to like poke me, because in the Dunes case, the guy I'm doing it with, this guy Sweeps, is like a super prolific beat maker. So I just get avalanched with beats, and then inevitably you find one you vibe with, and you're like, this is fun. Come on, you can't not write to this. And later, then you've got like 13 tracks you record, and you're like, wow, that's great. It's the best case scenario because you're not over, at least for me, I'm not overthinking it and whatever. I'm just having fun. The Dune stuff is definitely, I mean, fun's not the word because the folk stuff is pretty goofy too, but there's definitely less on the line, right? I'm not trying to get an idea across necessarily, but it's fun when I can. There have been a couple tracks I feel like I've made a point or whatever. But,
I don't know. My experience as a listener is quite the opposite. I feel like sometimes your hardest hitting writing, like in terms is. I mean, I think it's sort of on both fronts, frankly. But I do think that the it's funny that the hip hop format. It's just there's so many more words, Connor. Right.
I know.
But you're able. It's like everyone. I mean, that last one you posted with the video with the barrel of beer.
Yeah, you heard that one?
Yeah, it's like
I thought you'd like that one. That song.
Well, I mean, it's astonishing. So strong and so like, I don't know.
That one's like secretly political because I veiled they're like all these references to like political people I really admire, but it's all under this like dumb, rhyme scheme. Like Bill Grease, the character of Bill Grease, if that is a character, is like, the lazy, grimy side of me, right? It's this guy that just curses a lot and is sort of saying ignorant things that are packaged in like other cool things. I don't know.
Do you think about like when you're writing? Does it feel like you're writing as a character? Is it like you're leaning into a particular thing? Like not the character's authentic, but
for Dunes, like the Bill Grease stuff definitely seems like it at times. Which is kind of cool because you don't feel so much pressure really. You're like, this guy's just an asshole. Like if someone like misinterprets something, it's not me. It's Bill Grease, my imaginary friend. Who cares? Um,
Did
oh
it start
no.
out like that? Because I mean, you were doing. I know you were doing a lot of this before you were really like kind of going for it or whatever. Like I mean, like you were putting stuff online, right?
Yeah,
But it wasn't
I
like
don't know, Jimmy. I've always just words are just going up in here. There's something wrong with me. Like it's the only thing I really enjoy is stringing these dumb words together, and I couldn't tell you why. And it's always sort of been a thing. And I think you're kind of like that. Yeah, like you feel that too.
yeah.
Like the people I really jive with, for whatever, that's like a thing. Like people will ask me how to write a song. You're like, what are you talking about? It's just like, how do you write a song? It should just be occurring to you. I don't know. Like this idea of like, I'm going to set aside time. I'm going to write a song. Usually they're done in 30 minutes. Like it's like a baking thing. I don't know. It's just something that's constantly going in your head. I'm constantly procrastinating on a thing I should be doing for work with just these dumb words that are in my head.
That resonates a lot actually. I mean, I guess that's another thing I was wondering about. Just given how prolific you are, I know that anything you put out, there's like 100 other things you've written that you haven't done anything with. So like,
Yeah, for good reason, by the way. They're bad. They're not out there.
it's just you saying duty like 20 times in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, like what role would you say the songwriting plays in your life? Like, is it something where you're like, is it so it I guess what you're saying seems to indicate that it isn't at any level necessarily about like processing thoughts or anything, but it's more like of an impulse. But I
Well,
don't know, like
it's impulsive in that I've always done it, but I mean, you're definitely processing thoughts, right? Like, I don't know the psychology behind it. There's definitely like some subconscious, like if I'm always writing better when I'm reading a lot. I've noticed.
right.
Like I don't have a nice liberal arts uh, education to sort of like, I don't know. I was never instructed on like philosophy or even literature. So what you have is basically this like rube who reads books that like really weren't written for him, and then it's his version of it comes out at the other end.
Were
Really
you
good time.
always? I mean, you read so much, and you've read more classics than like anyone I know. Like it's like a. I mean,
Really?
yeah. I mean, because people aren't literate anymore, and I certainly don't. I mean, I never like if I was thinking about. Okay, I read Crime and Punishment. Okay, like I read Dead Souls.
I'm just finishing Dead Souls for the
Oh,
first
really?
time. Yeah, I think I got that recommendation from you.
It's a great. I have my grandmother's copy,
Really?
and I read it a few
So
times.
funny. So
Oh, it's
funny.
hilarious.
Oh my god.
All of yeah. I mean, like I've done some of those, but I didn't read like I haven't read any like I grew up actually in a house that had the great books,
Yeah.
but they were just like the big row of books. I didn't touch them. I was
Sure.
playing Super Nintendo. So have you always been like that? Have you always read a lot of literature, fiction?
It wasn't until like my early 20s, honestly. I'm pretty late to the game. I'd be lying if I told you as a teenager I was like I mean, I guess I always read, but it wasn't like, it was like Lovecraft. It was all these like garbage. I mean, fun. I'm not like you're not getting any like what is the meaning of life from a Lovecraft novel, you know what I mean? um it was like when I found Dostoevsky, that changed it. That changed the whole game. That
Okay,
blew
okay.
everything up. And I remember because I went to school for engineering at Wentworth, which is like a great way to never read a book ever again. And I remember we had to take, I think there was 2 English classes you had to take, and they were just English 1 and English 2. And English 2 had a little more stuff than English 1. And boy, if there was an English 3, I might, I might be a genius. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. But we were reading, I think it was The Double or something. Yeah, The Double. The main character is kind of like a schizophrenic-ish person and is super like awkward at parties. It's a great Russian novel. He's obviously a government clerk. They all are.
Right. It's
Every main character is a government clerk. And we're reading it, and the guy's like awkward and weird, and this kid from construction management, because it was like half engineers, half these construction management people, and all the construction management guys have steel-toe boots and like, I don't know, they're just brawnier than the engineers. I mean, you couldn't have 2 more different people, right, in a classroom. And the kid just goes, "Oh, I could beat this guy up." In the middle of reading. It was amazing. And I don't know. That just
No!
that memory was always funny to me. And that was around the time where I really fell in love with literature, which I think is why that story I remember so fondly. Because I was so digging it, and that so took me out of, what we were reading.
What puts a person in a place where that's how you respond to the piece?
And it's one of those things, I can't tell. It's almost like a bit I wish I could have done or had the balls to do. You know what I mean? I wonder if the guy knew what he was doing or was just that ignorant.
That's beautiful.
Have you tried writing? I mean, I know you. I mean, good Lord, all your thesis work and stuff. But
sure.
Have you tried writing fiction or anything?
I have never attempted anything even approaching that.
I tried. It's like the hardest thing ever. I don't know how people do it, frankly. Writing a song is so much easier than writing even a chapter of something.
Did you actually do like make a go of it? Like you're gonna make a short story or something?
Yeah, I've tried short stories. Only one I've sort of thought was mildly amusing, but it's tough. I don't get it really. It's one of those things.
How did you do that? What was the process like?
Oh, I was just bored. Procrastination. What do you mean?
Did you have like a character or something, and you're like, "What's this guy doing?" Or what was the? Because I wouldn't even know. That's the thing is, for me, I'm always like, just because of how I write, it's either I've just heard a song and I'm like, "Oh, this rips. I want to write a thing that's like this," or I have a particular idea I'm trying to convey. But the problem is, I don't like. I have, I think, in my whole life, maybe once written and executed a song where I was thinking about like a character and I was trying to like write through a character, and I abandoned it after the first line.
Yeah.
Right? Like I just didn't know, because I can't do it. Like I don't know.
Yeah, that is a tough thing to do, to like write write a song thematically, like about a character going through like the classic 3 acts or whatever. I've never done that either. The times I've tried to write short stories and stuff has to have been when I've been reading a lot, because you start thinking of things. Oh, you could do this way, or wouldn't it be funny? I don't know. Like everything I do, I don't know if my art or whatever the hell you call it suffers, but there's something in me that like to make a point really well. It sort of has to be funny to like get someone to really digest it. I don't know. What do you think about that? Because some of your stuff is silly.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't mean that in a derogatory way, like on purpose. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think in my mind that I guess the way that I think about that is it's coming from a place of being really averse to self-seriousness, but also being really interested in like quite serious things.
It's a good point. It's probably like a defense mechanism in some way.
Totally. Well, I mean, going back to the idea of like audience and target, for me, I think like one of the other things that I think distinguishes my work from yours is that for me the audience and the target is also oftentimes just myself. Like I'm so self-conscious and have always been so self-conscious and so like concerned about positionality and whatever, that a lot of my writing is a lot of it's like implicitly kind of poking fun at myself in a way that's sometimes productive and sometimes is just like, cool it,
Yeah.
But I think in that sense the desire to communicate something or work through something serious, it feels like it's undermined by a serious tone. Like what is worse than someone who has a really, really important thing to say and is being really solemn about it?
Oh, yeah. I know.
That just sucks.
Yeah.
because it's hard. Like then there's nothing worse than being sanctimonious. And I feel like if you're solemn about something that's serious, then whether or not you're being sanctimonious is kind of a matter of how someone interprets it, right? Yeah. And I want to make it so that you can't interpret it like that. Like if it's silly, it's a good way of kind of, as you say, it's defending yourself against the charge of being sanctimonious. That's kind of how I think about it.
I guess that's kind of why it's hard to write a genuinely sad song. Because like the people that write, like, I mean, I don't know. It's like the rookie maneuver for people just writing songs. I'm guilty of it. to just write a string of really sad songs as if no one's ever been sad before.
Right.
Like, um, like a tragedy is unique to them and should be shared and actually needs to be broadcasted.
Right now.
Yeah, right. You all need to hear how sad I can be. There is some element of that. It's like, I don't know. Maybe you know what? I'm gonna bail on this point. I'm about to make.
I don't know. I mean, because every time I write something that feels really like I wrote poetry in middle school.
Yeah.
So but I feel like because of that, like anytime I catch myself doing something that feels anything approaching what that was, I'm like, uh-oh.
That's why you should get kids to write young. Because I remember, do you remember writing your first song?
I started songwriting when I was 18.
Really?
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember writing
kidding.
my first poem, but
I would have thought. Okay, you were writing poetry though. That makes sense.
Yeah, like a lot of bad middle school poetry.
Yeah,
and I don't remember.
But how great was that to just get that out of the way? Because your first stuff's just gonna be trash. I mean, garbage.
I think I wrote probably 50 to 100 songs between age 18 and age 19.
Yeah.
And
yeah, because it was new, and you're like, oh, I'll try this. Yeah, I know. I kind of miss. What part of me is like, I wish I could go back, but then you're like, I don't know.
Well, I know I've actually had that feeling because there was a real artistic freedom to it, and I remember like a lot of it was that I also learned guitar. Like I started writing songs before I think I knew one or possibly two chords when I started writing songs. Like it was really 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 bad, and so when I initially was writing, there was like there was a lot of stuff to like talk about because I hadn't written anything yet. But B, if I could just write 3 minutes of something that sounded like a song, I was like, this fucking slaps. This is
that was
sick.
a win.
Like,
that was a win.
Yeah. And that's not the case anymore at all. Like it's and getting that back, I wrote some really creative stuff then because it was like I don't know, it was just the process was totally different than it is now. But I tell everyone that you should the same thing. You should write a lot young, because there's nothing sadder to me than someone who's like I have a lot of friends who are really talented who have never put out music because they're afraid.
Yeah, that's when you do need like a little ego boost. You do need some ego to just get yourself up and going, and then you need to tamper it right there. Like, that's it. Just you're confident enough to share, but that's it. No more.
Yeah, because there's kind of there's the dual painfulnesses of like a person who has a lot of talent who doesn't put their stuff out, and you're like, come on, and then someone who has like no talent but who puts a lot of stuff out, and you're like,
yeah. Like, which one would you prefer?
Honestly, it's
much rather the quiet person.
I mean, I would choose the latter on the assumption that in 10 years maybe something good will come out of it, which is what you hope. But it's like also, I don't know. This is something I find with youth poets. One of the things that I love about doing the poetry club with high school students is that they're all really good. Yeah. And so not only do they get an environment where they're writing a lot and there's like a kind of communal aspect to it, but also if you write like an amazing poem, you can't sit there and be like, I just wrote the best poem in the whole world. Because then 3 other kids read poems and you're like, oh wait, they're like really good too. And it's fine, right?
Yeah.
Like, but when I was in high school, there were like a couple of bands. And because there was only a couple of bands at the high school, those kids were like, oh my God, they're in the bands. Like they know how to play music. That's amazing. But if you kind of get big headed about it, and it sucks because then you get out in the world and it's like, no, everyone's really good, and that's good. Yeah. Like, it's, I don't know. Do you produce music in dialogue with other people in a sense? Like, are you like that where when you're doing writing, you're kind of thinking about. Like when I don't know, whenever I write, like it isn't just a matter of I see you and like Cameron Levere and other people that I'm thinking about how they're going to interpret it.
How's Cameron doing?
He's doing great.
I haven't seen him in years.
He's doing great, and he's still writing amazing music.
Awesome.
And and that's like that kind of to me that's a really important part of the process.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Is it like, are you like that, or are you kind of flying solo when you write?
I mean, I guess they're for someone, but I'd be lying if I told you I wrote it with specific people in mind. They'd probably be better if I did. I don't know. I've always just prioritized sort of being clever, and I like the idea of getting people who would disagree with me to sort of come around. They don't even have to agree, but be like, "Oh, you're right in that way." And in turn, I've been able to I have had that experience of either someone I know doesn't agree with me politically or whatever, or someone you take stock of how they appear and talk. You know, like, we probably don't agree on some things. That just are like, that was incredible. You nailed that, and you're like, wow, no kidding. All right. I don't know. I'm horrible at talking about myself, Jimmy.
No, it's not true at all. I mean, this is. I mean, yeah, that's. It make. I guess I only ask because I'm interested because it's such a big part of my own process. And as I say, I think that it can be a big barrier to me because I write for a particular audience, to think like I want to write this song, but I don't know how to do it in a way that's gonna do anything. And the problem there is that you wind up in the situation where like I actually believe at times that the song is like doing anything at all. And that's like a dark place to be because like no it isn't. You know, of course it's not doing it. I mean, yeah.
I think what I try to do is just make it undeniable. That's the goal. Whatever you're packaging, I mean that's what great comedy is. It's like you could laugh at something horrific, but they packaged it in a way that was undeniably like you laughed without being able to control yourself. I'm trying to think of another circuit. Like if you can just make it so that even your enemies philosophically can't really argue with it, that's a win to me. You just made something just useful for whatever you honestly believe in.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. I mean, because that kind of goes back to the thing about like interpretation and like people misinterpreting or not knowing what to do with the lyrics or whatever, or like people not getting it. Yeah, that's actually that's interesting guidance. I have to think about that next time I'm trying to write something. There's definitely a few things in the pipeline that I'm like really excited to try and work through song wise, but I'm also hitting one of those ruts I hit once in a while where I'm like, oh, I haven't gotten better at guitar in 10 years, and I just like
oh my god, tell me, dude, I am such. People are gonna look back and be like, he was great at that little finger picking thing he did, but he never really got better, did he? Like I've totally plateaued. And it's really bad. I mean, someone like Sonny June Clifford who just gets better at multiple instruments all the time. And you're like, wow, I'm a failure.
Yeah, and he can also do his like camping cooking thing.
Yeah.
It's like I'm watching the Food Channel.
Yeah, he's someone out of a novel. He's like a Steinbeck hobo in the best way possible. Like,
a true hero. A true hero we don't deserve. Well, I tell you, I really appreciate you talking to me here about all this songwriting stuff. I do have one kind of final thing in this vein, which is thinking about. So obviously we know that you're not necessarily as hung up about process in like a conscious way as I am, but I do wonder, in like reflecting on it, has touring and your experience touring changed at all the way that you think about either writing and performing, or the way you think about like the role of music, or like what you're trying to do with it? Like,
it's definitely influenced me. Just because you play for enough people from different backgrounds or whatever, you immediately notice like what works in all of them, right? Mm-hmm. And then you really feel the stuff that doesn't work in one city but does in the other. I mean, remember that night in Portland? Remember that night in Portland, Jimmy?
Who could forget?
Oh my god, I almost caused like a fucking riot. It was nuts.
That was amazing. That was one of my favorite moments of touring ever. Yeah.
What was great about that though for me, and I was all worked up afterward, but it ended up being kind of fine, is that I don't know how to succinctly. I have this song that sort of pokes fun at religion, but even pokes fun at atheists. It's just the joke is that all human beings have this silly beliefs, and it's silly. And that's like kind of funny to like point out all the silly things we do with that feeling. and one person in the crowd just was not having it. Like was not like I don't know. And I just sort of politely explained, maybe you'll get one of the jokes later. And like people started laughing, and it wasn't a great performance, but like I got through it. And I ended up coming away from the song that the song, when I stuck to the material, the material did hit for most of the room. And if I can write songs where like even if someone disagrees that much with it and I can just get through it and the rest of the room sort of makes up for it, that's a win. I don't know. I ended up coming away feeling that I wrote that song well enough. I shouldn't feel bad for
Right.
Because enough people came up to me being like, that was a great song, dude. You shouldn't have.
And it's funny the way you describe that like a comedian would describe a set, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Like and that is, I mean, it was fun watching. I can tell you when that was happening, I was in the way back of the room.
Yeah,
and
you disappeared. Thank you. Yeah.
I kind of slipped myself behind the door. Well, I mean, this is also like, it was one of the things I feel like I've learned a lot from touring with you, in part because I have, one of my biggest flaws as a person is that I have this extremely intense kind of deeply irrational secondhand embarrassment thing where anybody who is anyone who I am with at a thing, I feel immediate social responsibility for anything they do or say.
That is hilarious because you know me. You entrust that in me, and you know that I fuck it up all the time.
but it's been such a learning experience because like it's something that I don't know. Like I guess you know what it is. The thing that and the thing that I appreciate the most about what you've done and the kind of politics of your writing, and in particular that last song on Instagram I mentioned with the beer. What is that song called?
I think it's called "Don't Get Along."
Okay, yeah. So like I mean, up to that, like the thing that I feel like I've taken away is that there is now, I think, in particular in left circles, in left intellectual circles, there's now an understanding of the kind of the need for like a genuine class politics, B, the need for a kind of like empathetic and organizational focused politics, and one which like doesn't alienate people but understands that any ability to make large scale change in the country requires like having a political project that you can get people on board with, that people will like, want to do, and that means that disparaging people or alienating people is like actually a deeply unproductive thing to do, and that this is tied to a kind of really quick reevaluation of what like is at this point derisively referred to as wokeness. And there was something that I feel like in a lot of ways, like you were, you've sort of always implicitly understood this, but it's been something that there hasn't always been an obvious, like discourse into which you've sort of fit that would make what you were trying to do kind of intelligible. But I feel like through years of touring with you, and in particular you bringing a kind of like really unapologetic class politics to your art and to these spaces, regardless of whether or not this is what you thought you were doing, it was always very powerful to see. And I think it's like listening to that song was really cool because I was like, oh, this is like it's all coming together now. This is the song that we really need right now in 2021. This is like doing it. This is exactly.
Oh, that means so much, man. Because I wrote that. I never really know what I'm trying to achieve in a song until I did the first verse in that, and it's all, kind of stealthily politically charged. And then I wrote the hook for it. I'm like, oh, I know what this is about. And it was really great. And that was just one of those rare instances where you ever like write a song in just 10 minutes and you're like, I can't believe finally 6 months of nothing. And then you're like, I can write another one, right? No, it's another 6 months until you get. So that was really beautiful how that came out. And then we waited so long to release it. It was kind of weirdly a good time to drop it when we did. But that hook, the don't get along with the woke kids, don't get along with the folks who don't know about woke shit.
Yeah.
That is what I've always felt like. I mean, you've seen me try to, bandy about the struggle amongst academics. And I'm always just like, I've either accidentally insulted 3 people. it just never works out. I'm on your side, but I can't be allowed to be near you because it's gonna all explode in our faces.
I mean, that's exactly it. And this is the thing, is like I've always, like, the reason why I love touring with you and why I've always loved your music is because it's always been so clear that you have something there that is like deeply important and timely, and yet for whatever reason that was always accompanied with those moments like in Portland, or moments like we would be on tour and I'd be like, oh, like, you can't, no, like, that's not going to play here. And then but I would also be able to see, like, who am I, like, why is it that the thing that I'm like trying to affix myself to also doesn't feel like the vehicle that I need it to be? And I think that it was realizing really over the summer, I don't know why this was such a revelation, but like coming to really understand that like a mass politics is just that. It's mass politics, right? And it requires like if you reject that, if you reject mass politics, if you reject a kind of whatever like class focused politics, you know, you essentially walk away from the possibility of ever realizing anything politically. Like you walk away from change, and you wind up in the same, you know, rehashing the same kinds of like 19th century socialist factional disputes, to roughly quote Ben Burgess, like that the people have been fighting about for decades and decades, and it's like the dumbest thing ever. And to me, I always thought about it as like I was really theoretically minded, and like I like self-identify as an academic artist, and like that's like the opposite of what you do. But then I realized, actually, I don't even think that's the division. I think that it's just that you had this kind of politics in your music that wasn't intelligible, and now it is. Now people are, now it's like, I think the time is it's ripe for it. And again, that when I heard that song, I was like, this is vintage Conor Hennessy, and yet it also feels 100,000% like right now. And it was great, and it makes me really excited about what you're gonna do this year.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I gotta you've inspired just even talking with you. Has made me want to record. Well, I miss you, buddy.
I miss you too. And I'm gonna little peek behind the fourth wall here. I'm not gonna cut this out. I'm gonna end the episode now and say goodbye, and then I'm not gonna end the call. Okay, ready?
All right.
Okay. It's been great having you, Conor. Thanks for coming on, and I really appreciate being here. And I look forward to seeing you again in person. And unfortunately, we can't shoot a flat top anymore, but you know, we'll get around to it. All right.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, bud.
Yeah, of course.
Things copious. What you know about basic love and understanding your fellow man's the man that can save a man and turn a bandit. You ever notice wealthy folks think God planned it? That's the truth, kid. Fuck it, man. God damn it. Healthcare doesn't need a price. It's a right-wing schmucks getting touched till they see the light. And peace the president rapping over honey drippers break so slick. Make grease get the money slicker. I don't get along with